All right, I am so excited to dive into this episode with my dear friend Lauren. We connected at the Kajabi Hero event. She came up to me and she was like, "Hey, can I take a picture with you?" And then she reached out to me via email. And I am so excited to be chatting with her today. Before I continue talking, I'm just going to actually turn it over to you, Lauren, to give people a deeper background on your story. Obviously, we got the intro before we jumped into this episode, but I would love to know more about like how you actually got to where you are today and like how you got to a place where we're hopping on this podcast episode
Right.
right now and chatting.
Yeah. So I am 36 and I'm a chiropractor. I've got two kids and six different businesses. And so I've done a lot of personal development to know what my core values are. And so I do a lot of, I get therapy like we all do now. But my journey has really been about realizing that like embracing that I am a millennial. And with that, the need for freedom and really comes strongly in my life. But before I realized that aspect, that was like going to be a super important part of my life, I fell in love with chiropractic. And if you don't know much about chiropractic, it is a very hands on, in person kind of thing. Even a pandemic did not allow for any kind of virtual chiropractic to happen. And so as I had this career that I love, not in the past tense, but I chose it, and honestly, it put me through a couple years where I was like, would now that I know all this about me and how important it is that I don't want to be stuck in a building 8 to 5, 5 days a week until I retire, and I'd also don't wanna leave chiropractic prematurely because I feel stuck. Like, how do I take a profession that I fell in love with, but make a life that is everything I want it to be?
I
So
love that so
yeah,
much.
there's like a podcast in there and a bunch of like courses and stuff like that, and that's the other 5 businesses.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that that's the perfect thing to get started with is talking about with for the listeners, if they are running a brick and mortar business or they have a brick and mortar business, and there are a lot of brick and mortar businesses, I will say, out there that can have virtual aspects,
Mm.
but there are also a lot of brick and mortar businesses that can't have a virtual aspect to it. And so, what would you say in terms of people who are maybe in chiropractic or maybe they are physical therapists or whatever it is that they need to be in person with their clients, like seeing people in person? How do you create freedom when you have to be in person?
And the other thing, in addition to in person, is it's also a fee for service. So even physical therapists could do a lot of virtual stuff, like they could, but it's still swapping an hour for a certain amount of money or whatever, right? And so even if you were able to set up, I do physical therapy consults or from a beach, you're still really stuck in that this is how much I get for this hour. And so when you're talking about wanting to not just freedom from the brick and mortar, but then also the next layer is freedom from the fee for service. And 1 hour equals this. And in order to expand my wealth, I have to work 90 hours a week. So
Yeah.
I would say if like for first, if you're really in the I don't have anything. And if there's a chiropractor listening, they're like, oh, I sell pillows and I sell supplements online. I'm talking about, like, how do you create, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of I'm not talking about,
Yeah.
"Oh, I made an extra $1,000 on supplements in a month." We're talking about bigger, things. So, it comes down to figuring out, do if you want to be building wealth, then you really need to learn how to delegate to other people. And if you own your own business, it's this hard thing where you're going to probably lose some of your profitability. It just is the case when you're paying more people, but you need to become a really good leader and in being able to delegate, automate, make as many things just simple as possible so you can dip back and forth. So I adjust 12 hours a week in my clinic, 1 full day and 2 half days. And that's because that fits with what I want right now. But if next month I wanted to go down to 8 hours, I could definitely do that because I have the necessary training and systems and procedures in place for other people to do my job.
Yeah.
Which kinda gets them stuck a little bit too, but really, when you were running this business that is no, there I don't see a way in which I can be like, "Okay, Maya, I'm feeling your neck right now. Can you feel that? Can you oh, did you hear that pop?" You're like, "No." I'm like, "Shoot, me either." "Oh, that'll be $50." But so until that is a weird reality, which I don't see coming for my profession, if freedom is something that you're seeking and you feel really confident that, "No, I don't want to abandon this profession. Like, I still love this. I don't wanna do a full career pivot."
Yeah.
Then you need to figure out, like, how it runs in your absence.
I love that. And I feel like systems and automations and delegation are big terms that are thrown around in the entrepreneur space all of the time. Can you give us a little bit deeper of a look into, let's just start with delegation. What did that process look like for you at the beginning, and what does that look like for you now? Because obviously, like, delegation wasn't like, "Oh, I'm gonna go out and hire 20 people," at the very beginning, and it might look like that for you right now, but what was that first step when you were thinking about, "Okay, I need to create more freedom. How do I do that?" Delegation is that next
Yeah.
step for me.
I love that. So first, just because of the profitability aspect, a lot of entrepreneurs wait a little too long before they bring that person on that they're gonna delegate to. So honestly, I created this so I did a phone call. I don't have a virtual assistant yet, but, like, we need one, and we needed one 6 months ago. And so I'm doing this onboarding call with this company, or, like, a interview call to see and she's, "Okay, so for the first 2 weeks," and she's explaining how I'm gonna need to train this virtual assistant on all these things, and I'm like, "I do not have 25 hours to do this." And so I'm trying to figure it out because I need it, but I'm gonna have to figure out now how do I give the time
Yeah.
for this to happen, to go to that next step. And so a lot of entrepreneurs do the same thing. They wait to hire until they really needed it last week or last month.
Yeah.
And then they're in the situation where they don't have the time to properly train. So then they're stuck in this, and I believe this is a Michael Hyatt thing. Yeah, where they're imprisoned by this. It will take longer for me to train you than for
Yeah.
me to just do it myself. And so that's the first thing that people really get jailed by is I don't have the time to train you to do this. I'll just do it. I'll just do it. And then the next thing that comes with it is we care about this more than anyone. We
Yep.
also, if we're holding on to it, there's this lack of trust and this hyper control that comes from, I don't know that anybody's going to do as good of a job as me.
Yeah.
Because if I had an employee that I was like, I think they would do a better job, I would have given them that task a long time ago. So
Yep.
any tasks that are still on your to do list, you're holding on to because you don't trust that someone else can do it better without extensive training. And so, one of the things that I was reading in a book that was talking about where it's like, the goal shouldn't be, can they do it 100% as good as me? When you're looking to scale and make some of these changes of acquiring freedom and again, scaling your business, it's can they do it 80% as well as me? And
Ooh.
really wrapping your head around good enough. And there will be some tasks, like very few, that 80% isn't good enough, right? Your taxes or something, like, you don't want somebody like, good enough.
Yeah.
So there are, there are those tasks that you're gonna hold onto because you're like, "No, no, this needs to be 100%." But most of the things, like, it's good enough, and getting okay with if this is a dream that you are looking to build, then learning to go good enough is one of the first steps.
I love that so much, and I think too, I'm just like mic drop. I'm like, I agree with literally everything that you're saying. So good. Thank you for saying all those things. And I, thinking back on my journey when I was just initially looking to hire someone, I thought all the same things. I was like, but I can do this better. But the amount of time that it's going to take someone to learn my voice or learn how the systems and it's just going to take so long. But I love, love, love what you're saying because in order for any entrepreneur to get to really that next level and to get to I don't know if there's ever, like, total freedom, obviously, because there's still work involved, but to get to that level of freedom that, like, you aspire to get to, you have to hire people along the way. For you specifically in chiropractic, having this brick and mortar store, brick and mortar aspect to your business, what was that first hire for you?
The first hire was another doctor because I guess I can't say the first hire. The first hire is like a front desk person, right?
Yeah,
Because you learn really quickly there's the things that you need to do, and then there's the things that somebody else should easily be doing. So the first hire is the easiest one where it's, I'm not answering the phone. That's weird. Why is the doctor answering the phone? And I'm not scheduling and I don't want to collect the money. So, yeah, again, all the stuff you don't want to do. So you make that first hire of, I want to do this. Please, someone else do this. I am terrible at it. The first real difficult hire was you get to this certain point where it's, I have delegated as much as I can, but ultimately, the only thing that I can't delegate right now is the adjustments. Like, my
yeah,
front desk can't do that. I need to employ a higher level employee, a higher level salary to do the adjustments because the adjustments are what pays the bills.
yeah,
Like, I can have the best scheduler in the world, the best collections person, the best, front desk experience, but all none of that is what we charge for. We charge for the adjustments. And so we needed to duplicate our product so we could make more money. And then after that, then it was so when I'm adjusting less, then I'm becoming the CEO. And then once you've had these first two main hires, those one tend to be easiest ish. Again, the doc it's a higher salary, but when you're sitting as a CEO and you still have this, I do the marketing and I like to send those emails and I like to do this, then you've really gotten into your area, which isn't 100% your genius zone, but it's like really where you're holding on to. You're like, these are my precious. And you really
yeah.
don't want to let those. So letting go of marketing was my most difficult one because I coach chiropractors on marketing. So there would literally be on the same day, I would release something on Instagram or on my podcast about never do this in a reel or always make sure your reels include this. And then that same day, my front desk would release a reel that is not what I just trained on. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'd call that 80% is good. Maybe that's 50%. You're like, "Oh gosh, that's" so, like, the marketing required but it was that check like, that kind of systems of checks and balances where I was like, "Okay, I'm spending a lot of time out here on this other job training other people to do theirs. Maybe I need to turn back inwards, come back, not take it back because that's the other thing that a lot of people wanna do is they'll delegate something. It gets not messed up, but, like, kinda that, I don't know, grimace where you're like, "That's not what I wanted," and so
Yeah,
they take it back. Their ego takes that as proof that, "Nope, you shouldn't have delegated this. This is something that you should only be doing," and they just take it right back,
yep.
and instead in that moment, leaning into, "Okay, let's review what qualifies as like a really top-notch reel or a top-notch piece of marketing in this. That's uncomfortable conversations." And so we just avoid all that. And we're like, I'll just do it. I'll just do it.
Yeah, and I think something else that you said as well, where you were talking about finding someone who can just do it 80%, I think about when you get to a point where you're looking for that first hire too, you have so many things that are going on that honestly, if we're being like totally truthful, a lot of those tasks are probably being done 80% by you anyways because you have so many things that are going on. Like you can't give your 100% to all of these different things, and ultimately, like, to me, I was like 80%. At first, I was like, "Oh, yeah," but then I was, like, thinking about myself when I was looking for that first hire, and I was like, by the time I got to that person who took on for me, that was email marketing, 100%. I was already doing that task at 80%, so anything at that or above is, like, amazing. So
Yeah.
that's something to keep in mind too is you get to that point, and we shouldn't have to get to this point, but most entrepreneurs do wait until, like you said, it's until it's like you're about to burst and you literally have no capacity at that point, and you could even have tasks that you're doing at 50%. So anything above that is gonna be
Yeah,
amazing. So that's just
absolutely.
something that I was like, "Oh, I love that you said that." Okay, so we just talked about delegation. Now, going into like the systems and automations aspect of that, what does that actually mean? What does that actually look like?
And I feel like if you're a brick and mortar that has started in the last 1 to 5 years, or you're just in more that Gen Z, a lot of this is not gonna be groundbreaking. Um, but from a clinic that we're in our 14th year of business, when we started, there was not Instagram. There was Facebook, but, like, Facebook had started, like, 5 years prior to that type of thing. Like, it was this new thing where, like, it was not like, "Oh, if you have a business, of course you have a Facebook page." It was that more old school, and over time now, it's just looking at the things that our front desk does. I'm a big person on trying to keep it as profitable as possible,
Yeah.
right? Because in this pursuit of seeking freedom, we have swung the a little far in the hiring where it's great. We've got this seven-figure business that I'm not keeping as much of that nearly at all as I should be
Yeah.
because I had delegated to humans and we needed a lot of humans to do it.
Yeah.
And now when you're looking at AI, holy cow, and just like automatic there is an app and a system for everything now.
Yeah.
So our patients can schedule themselves on an app. We pay $300 a month for that service, but $300 times 12, what is that? Like around $3,600 a year. You can't get a person for that.
Yeah.
And when we are seeing the volume, like our clinic will see between 5 to 600 people a week who are trying to schedule and reschedule, like I would need to employ a $40,000 a year employee for sure
Yeah.
to just answer the phone and like schedule and reschedule. And so like that is a huge thing that I didn't need a person for. And so I remember years ago. So I live in a really small town. We have a Walmart. We do not have a Target. It's really sad. So about 5 years ago? Maybe it was close, like somewhere between 3.5 to 5 years ago, our Walmart took out a bunch of the checkout lanes, put in self-checkout.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, "Oh, that is so sad because they're not, like, offering these jobs anymore, and you're losing that human touch point." Shocking. Walmart knew what they were doing. They're a lot more business savvy than me. And so fast forward to this year, and I have no problem checking out my own stuff, and we see across the board, like, a hiring issue for in, like, brick and mortar. Like,
Yeah.
pandemic really just escalated that more where people wanna work virtual or they want high dollar jobs.
Yeah.
And so these like jobs that are like flipping burgers at McDonald's and so like these lower level tasks are not as desirable anymore and you'd have to pay so much for them. So it's really like those jobs, any of those jobs that can be replaced with an app it's good to do because then you can bring on a higher level employee to do the things that an app can't.
Yeah. I love that so much. Okay, I want to take the conversation, kind of pivot it in a different direction. So, as you were talking, you talked about how you let go of marketing, but then you were also teaching other chiropractors marketing. So, I'm assuming that's one of your other businesses. Can you give a little bit of background on when you decided to do that, why you decided to do that, and what that business kind of looks like?
Yeah. So I was a part of a chiropractic coaching company, not my own. I was just, and I wasn't paid. It was like volunteer basically, but like I had shown enough success in my practice that they were like, hey, you should teach our people. It was really great for them because they got free labor. But multiple times a month, I would do a Zoom call with 15 to 20 chiropractors and we would just talk through systems, procedure, and all these things. And I had done that for a couple years and I realized, all right, it's just time for me to evolve out of this. I left really not knowing what the next step was going to be. I had no idea, but I realized within a month of leaving that I missed problem solving. I really missed the entrepreneurship brain, getting my gears going of, oh,
Yeah.
here's what I would do with this and talking to people about that. So I was like, let's start a podcast. And I'm like, and I'll just invite chiropractors to write in their problems, their situation, and I'll just give my opinion of what I would do. And so luckily my husband's super techie, so it didn't really involve much other than me him coming up with the idea and him being like, and here's a microphone, start doing it. And so I created an Instagram account to go with the podcast. The Instagram was really just there to promote, like, I'm starting a podcast, go listen to it.
Yeah.
So, simultaneously, the Instagram grew, the podcast grew. I really started to learn what the audience from Instagram because with the podcast, there's very little feedback
Yeah.
of did they love this episode
Yeah.
or did they go meh? So, like, Instagram really went hand in hand with the podcast of trying to determine what does my audience want to hear more of, and it grew slowly, like, in my mind. So we're on episode 216, so if I subtract that, I think that's 4 years now,
Yeah.
and it is still to date just 100 followers a month of just, oh my gosh, and in my head, I just wanna fricking go viral so I can have an impressive number of followers.
Yeah.
My content, in the beginning, I would try and do more, like, vague entrepreneurial stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll and it just flopped. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't do well because it wasn't speaking directly enough to my chiropractic audience. It was
Yeah.
too vague, and then I all of a sudden am this, like, small fish in this huge sea of podcasts and Instagram accounts trying to give small business advice, and so I just kept going back to chiropractic and
Yeah.
talking about the things funny stuff that only chiropractors would resonate with, right? No other person is gonna share that reel or be like, "Oh, yeah, totally. I hate when a patient farts when you adjust them," right? And so it was slow, and I dealt with a lot of, like, back and forth frustration and comparison issues of, "I'm putting all this time into this," and yeah, I am very happy for my 7,000 plus followers, like, they're great, but it wasn't until I went to sell a course, like, actually go, "Okay, you've been receiving this podcast for free." It's easy to say you like something when it's free. It's
Yeah.
easy to follow an account, but let's see how supportive these people are. How much of a community have I actually built?
Yeah.
And when we went to launch our high ticket course last year, I had no idea if I was going to sell a single one, to be honest. And we sold out and sold 25 and brought in close to $200,000 of revenue. And it was like, oh, wow. Okay, I could have had 50,000 followers, let's say, like
Yeah.
7 times the number of followers, but it wouldn't have necessarily been people who would have bought that course because that I just stayed very true to, like, this is the niche that I'm in. This is what they find helpful. Therefore, they stay super engaged with me. And so then when I put out a product, they knew this is going to be like, I resonate with her. I trust her. I want this.
Okay. I'm, like, mind blown right now. I'm like, "We gotta back up. We gotta break this down a little bit more." Six-figure, basically multi-six-figure launch at the time. What was going on? So how long had the podcast been around? How long had your Instagram account been around? How many followers on Instagram did you have? Give me all the data.
Yeah, great question. So about 3 years, so about 150 episodes.
'Kay.
And there was this really interesting I was at a leadership development course or weekend in Nashville, and Rory Vaden who does like personal branding for Amy Porterfield and a
Yeah.
bunch of other names like that we would all recognize,
Yeah.
was at this conference and he was talking about one of the things that he does when he's helping someone like build a personal or launch something is it's give away all your best stuff. Give it away. Don't gatekeep anything for 3 years. And he said, obviously, he gets a lot of pushback because a lot of the times, by the time someone's, I have this, I know I want to sell this tomorrow. And he's like, you don't have the audience.
Yeah.
You don't have this established trust.
Yeah.
Gary Vee, I think, is really big into this also,
For
where
sure.
it's just give it all away for a long time. Now, if you remember, I had no idea why I was starting a podcast except for because that's fun. And so literally, I'm sitting there at this conference next to my husband, who like is my co-manager in all of our businesses. And we're ironically 3 years in to this podcast,
Yeah.
knowing we're ready to monetize in some way, but not really knowing what we've done and gone, oh, shoot, we accidentally did that exact thing.
I love that.
We stumbled into what the experts recommend, which is just pour it all out, give it away. And so then by the time you have something, people are like, well, this is what she's giving away. I can't imagine what's behind that payment line.
I love that so much. Okay, and so in terms of Instagram followers, what are we looking at?
Probably 6,500 ish. Yeah, I've probably grown about 700 since that, probably closer to 6,000. It's not like I went viral once I started selling a course, but
Yeah.
I will say we did not do a single ad for any of those sales.
So it's
All
all
of that,
organic?
all organic. And we have about 1,000 chiropractors or 1,000 people that listen to every episode. So between the podcast, getting consistently 1,000 people every week, and the 6,000 on Instagram, our email list wasn't massive at all because I don't listen to Jenna Kutcher. And I got, oh, I'm sorry, I'm working on it now, right? After the Kajabi conference, I'm like, okay, fine. So even though I had 7 or 6,000 followers on Instagram, our email list was like a 900.
Yeah.
And all we did was send out a Sunday email that said, new episode, here's the links to listen. So, like, we really weren't nurturing them at all. Nothing on YouTube. I really just isn't my jam. This is where I think I am a younger millennial where I'm like, oh,
I
and
feel
the
you.
part I'm missing such a bit. I have such a small market. And a lot of my market, okay, 25 to 55-year-old female chiropractors is my market. The 40 to 55-year-olds are still over on Facebook. So there's a whole group that have no idea who I am because I just don't show up on Facebook at all. But
Yeah.
that's my virtual assistant's going to help. So yeah, so we weren't doing any Facebook, any YouTube, no TikTok. It was just Instagram and the podcast.
I love that. And what did the launch timeline look like? So you were promoting on podcasts, you obviously promoted on email and you promoted on Instagram, but in terms of timeline, what did that look? Was this like a month-long timeline? Was this like 1 week of a hard push? What did that look like?
So because of the price point of the course, I did discovery calls for everybody. So like basically a 15-minute call to find out because the topics in the course, it's not a startup course. Like it
Yeah.
is not for somebody who's just graduated or just starting their business. This is definitely for a certain level of like mindset and business.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to bring anybody in with false expectations
Yeah.
and really lay out what was going to be in it. And so 15-minute call. So this was over. I had planned on December through the end of January. I was going to like soft push and just see like, all right. I was basically gatekeeping the need for any paid advertising until after Christmas. If we weren't doing as well as I thought by that Christmas, because this was our first year, we had no idea. We have no click funnels going. We have no virtual, like it's just, and we were like, you know what? If maybe we only sell 3 or 4, we'll just do the entire course through Facebook, like a Facebook group, like just
Yeah.
keep it super low. And so we just did a soft launch through starting with the podcast and being
Yeah.
like, okay, this is the course that I've started. This is like what it is, maybe a 3 or 4 minute spiel. And you don't have access to it until this date. I think I gave like a 2 week thing. And if you want to get on the wait list, this is going to be the cheapest price.
Yeah.
And so it's going to go out. There's a certain number of spots, but there's going to be a 48-hour wait list special where you will get first access to this if you want. And we had, I think, like 110 people on the wait list. And then from that's where we then gave more information and then the price.
Yeah.
And do you want to, and I think the waitlist price was 6,900. And do you want to then set up a call with me? You have to book it during this 48-hour special to get that. And so we had 30 people from that wait list book a call, and I closed 14 of them. So it was like this was in the first 2 weeks of this like initial month of a soft launch where I was like, whoa. I remembered, okay, I don't think a Facebook group is going to work. And so this is where we joined Kajabi.
Yeah.
I think we need to, okay, we're on to something. Because
Yeah.
we just, we had actually done, which I didn't include, 2 smaller courses.
Okay.
Previously.
Okay.
And one was a Reels course. And it was like actually really good. Like the amount of information and editing that went into it was awesome. And we're like, we're going to sell this. So it was Reels for chiropractors. We're going to sell this for $37. And we're just going to sell like 1,000 of them. We didn't. We sold like 35 and we learned. Like we learned a lot. Oh, we also learned that I didn't really love creating courses on social media.
Yeah.
Because we went to relaunch 6 months later. Oh, that course requires at least 30 hours of editing because Instagram has
Outdated.
updated.
Yep.
17 outdated. So it was like, okay, great lesson. I don't want, when I create a course, I don't want to have to do that much every
Yeah, for
time
sure.
I relaunch it. And we learned that the price point was way too low. Nobody, like people are so busy that they're like, there is likely nothing of worth of my time for
Yeah.
$37. Like this, where it's just, it should have been a $300 course.
Yeah.
And so we learned, okay, price point. And then there was just like another one that was like really early on within like maybe a year after that I think was like at a $400 price point. And like that one did well, I think. But again, it was so much work.
Yeah.
So that one, I only allowed 15 people in. But if you start doing the math and I was showing up for that group every week and doing all this, you start doing the math and was that worth it?
Yeah.
So yeah,
For
so we
sure.
had done 2 other ones and we just soft failed and learned.
Yeah.
Did
Okay.
I answer
What
your
has
question? What
what
did
did
you
you
I said, did I even answer your question? I went on like a tangent there. Sorry.
No, yeah, you totally answered the question. Thank
Okay.
you. What has sales looked since the launch? Have you continued to sell? Or was it like a big rush and now it's like crickets? What does that
Yeah.
look like?
So it was closed. So
Okay.
because it's a 10-week course only offered once a year with like cohort calls.
Yeah.
It was like a very strong start date
Yep.
and end date. I had 2 months planned, like the first month being like, we'll just push organically. And then the second month, we'll do a bunch on advertising if we need to. Doing hey, if we spend $10,000 on ads to even get 2 more sales, that makes sense, right? And our
Yeah.
brain had
Yeah.
never wrapped we'd never wrapped our brains around that kind of money before,
Yeah.
right? Like when you're talking about the jump from organic to paid and when you're like, "Oh, but no, you could spend $10,000 on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube ads, and if you just sell 2, you're ahead." And it's, well, that's crazy to think. So yeah, so we had held all that as like a, if we need to. But by Christmas, so 3.5 weeks in, we had sold 21 of the 25 spots. And so then we're like, okay, let's just let time. I continued to throw it out on Instagram, maybe like once or twice a week.
Yeah.
I'd mention it, and then just those remaining spots filled up. And it was like, oh, that was easy. Knock on wood, easy. So then we will We won't go into our second launch until this December, and we're going like, we might actually wait until after Christmas because we didn't need, it starts the first week in February,
Yeah.
and January was really nothing for us. So we're like, maybe we'll just start the week after Christmas and sell in January. And yeah, but it's a close card thing. So
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I love that. Something I think, at least me, where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so mind blown. The reason why I am so mind blown is because I think a lot of people think in order to bring in that type of money during a launch, you have to have hundreds of thousands of
Mhm.
followers. And with you, you have a very micro niche. Like you are a pretty much as niche down as you can possibly get in terms of
Yes,
niche.
not
And
just chiropractors. It's female chiropractors who don't use insurance and are focused on pregnancy, pediatric, and family practice. So we're not like rehab, car accidents, any of that. So it's even smaller than that.
yeah, and I love that because again, you've built something that most people only dream of from having an audience that is quite small in terms of when we're talking of audiences on social media. What would you what piece of advice would you give to someone who is listening to this and they're like, "Okay, I want to be successful, but I have a micro niche, maybe not like that micro, but a more specific niche." And what would you say in terms of advice to that type of person?
I would say get even more specific. Like if you are in like the fitness realm, which isn't a brick and mortar, but that's a niche, right?
Yeah.
That is a big area.
Yeah.
And you can make it really big, but I would almost say like niche down further than you think in the beginning. Get traction because like life is long, right? So I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to stay in this micro niche for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I might work this, learn from it for the next 3 to 5 years, and then I might start working on all healthcare private practices.
Yeah.
But starting niche gave me traction faster.
Yes.
Like it allowed it to grow much faster because I said 100 a month, and that's not true. It jumped to 3,000 within the first 6 months. But our first episode from a podcast standpoint was 1,000 listeners, which is the average podcast gets 126 downloads, which is, I always joke, I would not keep going. I would not for 126 downloads. I'm sorry, that's too niche. No, niching down even more, really picturing instead of, so let's say you have a following of 300. Instead of trying to talk to 300 people, imagine the one person, and this is cheesy and overstated, but picture at most two or three people who are your followers and like exactly what problems they have. So I think we're so worried to swing for the fences and like miss.
Yeah.
So being like, I know you want more freedom in your life. What if they don't want more freedom?
Yeah.
Okay, then don't worry. Keep doing. And the fact of the matter is a lot of time this is going to be, especially in the niche world, something very close to who you are likely your target market. If you're in the niche world, I'm trying to think of, well, if it's a problem you have, this is what your audience has. This is it. You can feel very confident that if you go and this is something that you find really annoying or really funny when it happens in clinic, you can be assured that your niche feels the same way. And that's what's that slow, steady, organic growth will get you is like the people who don't relate. Like there are chiropractors who I don't want to say I like rip on rehab or anything like that. It's just I find it boring. I find it like adjusting an elbow like the like most boring thing in the world. Give me a newborn with colic or constipation any day and I'm like, "Yes, that is what." And there are chiropractors who are like, "Oh, I hate adjusting kids. They're
Yeah.
squirmy, they might puke on you. Give me a Medicare 70-year-old, like, with sciatica any day," and we both would just be like, "Ugh, that sounds like my worst nightmare."
Yeah.
So, there are people but I wasn't trying to get all of chiropractic because I knew if I threw out an elbow thing, then, like, my audience that really actually resonated with the true version of me would be like, that's they just would be only
Yeah.
half engaged.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Okay, to wrap everything up, we've talked about so many different things, so many different aspects from brick and mortar to delegating to systems and automations and successful launches and micro niches. I would love to know from someone, again, from the standpoint of having a brick and mortar business, looking back on your journey where obviously it was you in this brick and mortar business, then you went about delegating and implementing systems, and then it probably got you to a place where you had enough freedom to then start this more in the online space, the more micro niche where you are now having courses. And that's probably also brought a lot of freedom in as well, because that's not total passive income, but that allows for a little bit more of that passive income to
Mhm.
be coming in. So for someone who is listening who has a brick and mortar, do you suggest that they also think about transitioning into the online space? Or just looking back on your
Yeah.
journey, what would you suggest for someone who's, oh my gosh, okay, I'm in brick and mortar. This is my final question. I'm in brick and mortar and I'm looking for more freedom. Are there multiple avenues for them? What is that? How would you answer that question?
Yeah, I won't speak for all because, like, I'm sure I'm gonna forget, like, some really great pieces of advice that other people would say, but I think understanding I'm about to say something super cheesy, like, the why you're doing this, but it's so true. Like,
Say it.
you have to understand why are you doing this? Because within chiropractic, for instance, a lot of times, if you put the effort that you're going to in this side hustle just into the business you've already started, you would see more profit. So don't like, I'll see this with like chiropractors that will reach out and they'll be like, I don't know, I want to make more money. Like maybe I should start selling oils. And it's, do you love oils? No, and it's like, focus on your business, like your meat and potatoes. Don't have so many different things that you're trying to serve up to make a buck. Focus on the thing you're passionate about, which is obviously the thing you started your original business about. If it's just about making more money, which is that form of freedom, financial freedom is huge,
Yeah.
then double down on what you're passionate about, because what you're passionate about you will just like magnetically attract more sales. And you'll see that income, especially like talking about like magnetism and energy, if you're distracted on something else. So if I'm distracted trying to make $1,000 a month on selling oils, guess what's going to happen to that like nest egg, my original baby of a chiropractic clinic? So if it's just about financial freedom, really just, and you're not like, you don't mind the jail, 4 walls and 8 to 5. If you're like, "Oh, that doesn't bother me at all. I just need more financial freedom." Just double down on what you're already doing. Don't reinvent the wheel, just keep doing it. Maybe hire a coach to clean up systems in the business you've already done. Get excellent at that first thing. Now, if you're like, and that kind of extends into if you're like, it's not just about financial freedom. It's about this passion, this hobby. I call myself so my course is the multi-passionate chiropreneur, right? Because I don't want to just adjust. I want to have a podcast and I want to have an Airbnb and I want to have a this.
Yeah.
So if you're like, no, in my heart, I will die if I just have to do this one thing the rest of my life. I need to be able to play in other areas.
Yeah.
Then still, you have to first, before you start moving in that other arena, make sure everything is secure in your brick and mortar. So around the time where I talked about that first launch, like the $400 course that was like, yeah, my practice actually tanked, but like our numbers decreased over the 3 months that I was making, promoting, and doing that course because my practice, I had built a very personality based clinic that was really dependent on me. And so a lot of people don't realize how much they've created a business that needs their life force in it. Even if they've delegated and they've automated and they've done all these things, you remove their mojo, you remove their energy, and the employees are just like, wah, wah. And you need to make sure that before you get not distracted, but before you're going to add something to your plate, that your original commitments feel loved, that you have systems and procedures like meetings, like regular meetings and check ins with these people to make sure, and they know you haven't abandoned them for your next new adventure. That's really important. And making sure that it's going back of systems, procedures, meetings, checklists, like key performance indicators with your employees, all of those business terms with your original baby. And then going, right, what is my why? I want something that gives me more financial freedom and virtual freedom or whatever it is, but figure out what are you creating? For us, for our Airbnb, when we added that, it was because I wanted a really nice house on a really nice lake in our area. We plan to retire half the year in this area. We love this area of
Yeah.
northern Wisconsin. Those houses were like $750,000. And the business is going good. My husband was like, I would rather look at a real estate investment versus just becoming house poor.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, so what's the why? We want to have access
Yeah.
to a lake. We want to start building our portfolio. That was our why. So then buying a house to short-term rental was the answer. But if we hadn't have done any of that why, and it was just like, I just want to be on a lake, then we would have gotten ourselves just in a situation where it's like, all right, we have this large mortgage that isn't really doing as much for us. And so going to that why of what are you wanting to build and why? And that's
I
important.
think a lot of people, at least that I've talked to in direct messages, and this is definitely not my area of expertise by any means, but a lot of people come to me they're in the brick and mortar space and they think that in order to achieve the level of freedom that they want to achieve, that they have to be in the online space with courses and things like that. And so I love that you are sharing a different perspective that you don't have to do that in order to achieve that level of freedom. If you want to, and that makes sense in terms of your passions and in terms of your why, then that's great. But there's also other ways with a brick and mortar business to achieve that level of freedom that people are searching for. So I just think that's so super amazing. And I lied. I do have one final. This is
Yeah.
like actually the final question. I would love to know. I'm gonna ask you to get a little bit vulnerable. What
Oh.
is one of the biggest mistakes looking back on your journey that you've made, and what is a lesson that you've learned from that?
So I'll give you touch on the true one is the one I already touched on is that I got distracted with a flashy object of starting something, a side hustle. And I left a team of 8 people feeling like I was done with them.
Yeah.
And so that was absolutely the number one thing that I was like, whoa, whoops-a-doodle, can't have that happening, right? You
Yeah.
can't have your nest egg of the thing that is actually paying your bills substantially fall apart while you're trying to chase this other thing. Now, a less vulnerable one is that for a while, our brick and mortar was trying to play the reels game and trying to go viral. And we did. And it completely ruined our Instagram account. Completely. Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, I want more. I want
Yeah.
more. We have time. I think that's worth diving into.
And this is controversial. I know that we're all, but okay, brick and mortar business in a county of 50,000 people. Okay. Most of that community is still using Facebook heavily.
Yep.
And so we had about 900 followers on our Instagram account. We would put a story out and get 300 to 400 views. We would put a video out and get 500 to 1,000 views.
Yeah.
Good. You put something, get like 4 to 6 comments, like good engagement.
Yeah.
And then we posted a video about how chiropractic helps you poop. And it went like 11 million views viral. We went
Whew.
from 900 to 21,000 in the course of a month. Like that thing just kept going. And at first, it was so exciting because going viral it's like going into a casino and just like being at a slots machine and you're just like, holy cow. You just every time we would refresh the screen, it was another 100 likes, another 10 followers. It
Yeah.
was like so exciting. And so we let it happen.
Yeah.
And then like 21,000 followers. Our town is 8,000. Okay. Our county is 50. So these are not people. So then I start getting messages like, "Oh my gosh, where are you located? My baby needs this. I think I need this. Does this work on adults?" And because I love chiropractic, I'm like, we gotta answer these DMs,
Yeah.
right? Like you gotta, okay, where are you? So then now here I am on the internet trying to find a pediatric certified chiropractor in Dallas that I would send them to. Okay,
Yeah.
try this person. And oh, thank you so much. For a couple weeks, we had one of our front desk like just handling DMs and helping people find a chiropractor that can help them,
Yeah.
which is great. Then we go and post on stories, and all of a sudden now we're getting like 200 views. Like half as many views as when we had 900 people and now we have 21,000
Yeah.
that all were collected in the month over one single reel. And the engagement just went to nothing. And obviously this, but when you're looking at the metrics, even if okay, so if 400 people were viewing our stories, but it was 400 of the 900 engaged people in my community.
That's
That is
huge.
worth so much more than if 2,000 of the 21,000, because it's just a percentage.
Yeah.
And the percentage of it's not people who matter. I don't mean that they don't matter,
Yeah,
but
but
they're
matter in
not.
terms of your business and what's gonna bring you money and what's gonna help you to hit your goals at the end of the day, for sure.
Yeah. So now I'll have chiropractors reach out and say, okay, I know that this is your story. We're going viral. What do you recommend I do? And I would love your opinion on this, Maya. But I tell them I would delete it. I would stop the hemorrhaging. I
Yep.
would. And they're like, what? What? And I'm like, I know. I know. I know. If so then I say, "You know what? Fine. Then pick either Instagram and TikTok. Do one of them for local sales and then one to feed the ego. Fine. If you wanna become a famous chiropractor, honestly, I just interviewed a chiropractor who got a show on TLC because she was found on TikTok.
Yeah.
So there are opportunities that can happen. If you wanna become a famous chiropractor, then have both. But, like, when you're looking at return on investment, it can really tank. It can
Yeah, but
really.
also your question though is like, what is your why? Like, why are you doing it? What is the purpose behind you doing it? Because if your goal is to be on TLC or whatever, then that's
Yep.
great. Obviously, then you want that type of virality. You want the visibility to people who are outside of your community, but that's not most people's goal. And so, yeah, I totally agree. It's better to you're a perfect example of that. It's better to have an audience of people who are very specific to the business that you are wanting to build, to the goals that you have, than to have an audience of people who are just these random people out there on the internet. And I hear a lot of times too, people are like, "Oh, I'm just gonna make my reels a little bit less specific. And then I'm gonna gain more followers, and then it's gonna help me to grow." And it's no. Potentially a few of that percentage of followers that are gonna come from that viral reel are gonna be people who are gonna be your purchasing customers, but the very large majority of that are not. When it's that's not beneficial. And I think that I don't know. The reason why I wanted to there's a lot of reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast, but a big reason is you're the perfect example of it's not more followers equals more sales at the end of the day. And I think that a lot of times just in our space right now in social media, people are just so much chasing the virality, so much chasing the number of followers. And it's easy for me to say because obviously I'm over
Right.
here with 275,000 followers. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, chasing yeah, but also at the same time though, it's like ultimately who's going to be that person that helps you to get to your goals, and it's going to be the person who is your ideal customer, your
Mm.
ideal follower, your ideal client. And there are some niches where you might have hundreds of thousands of people out there who are your ideal client, but there are a lot of niches out there where that's not the case. Like I even have a one-on-one client that I just finished working with, and she is an MS physical therapist, so multiple sclerosis. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, and I was just talking to her the other day. And she's like, what do I need to do to improve on my Instagram account? And she has 25,000 followers, which is amazing. And she's like, what do I need to do to improve to reach more people and more visibility? And I was like, you're probably like reaching a lot of the people that you could potentially reach. Like,
Right.
thinking about how many of those people are on Instagram and, like, how many so it's you have to think of it in terms of that and get really realistic, and I'm like, "You are an expert in your space, and it's not that more followers is gonna equal more sales at the end of the day." Now it's really utilizing and really nurturing that community that you already have to then be able to hit those goals. And if you do nurture those people, again, you're a prime example of that. If you do nurture that community, even with a small number of people, you're going to be able to hit those goals. So I just appreciate you sharing all of that.
I have one tiny thing that like, have to add on to this because it's super important. So one of the things that, like, in this conundrum of, okay, figuring out what does well with the audience was, okay, so I have a bunch of chiropractors following me, right? And so the nature of this is I can create content for the chiropractors in 2 ways. One, content that they will share because they have patients following them.
Yeah.
So the chiropractors that follow me have patients following them. So I can create content of here's 4 stretches for pregnancy. And all of the chiropractors that follow me will go, "Oh yeah, I want my audience to see this.
Yeah.
I will share it." And that reel will likely go a lot more, like, do really well because
Yeah.
I'm going to have it might get reshared 300 times. But then if I increase my followers, what followers am I getting? I'm getting my chiropractors' patients. And that's not my target audience. Those
Yeah.
patients are coming to me because they want, like, chiropractic advice where I'm giving business advice to chiropractors. And so then if I post something that is, here's 4 ways that I attract more patients on Instagram. The chiropractors love it, but they're not going to share that
Yeah.
because that's not what their audience wants. And so it was this really hard thing of, I knew if I create something that all the chiropractors are like, or if I say something that, like, makes fun of a patient, right? Tongue in cheek, we all do it in our professions. Oh, I'm going to have a bunch of chiropractors just laughing and commenting and being like, "Oh my God, that's so true." But they're not going to share it
Yeah.
because they're going to look like a jackass to their audience. Sorry if we're not allowed to swear. So it was this thing where you're like, for the MS physical therapist, it was like, is her audience people with MS? Or she could start jumping into the other doctors who treat MS,
Yeah.
but then MS patients are going to be like, this isn't,
Yeah.
like, relevant to me. And so you do go, oh, this is difficult to do. So
Yeah, no, I love that. It's just it's sticking with it though. And for looking at your story again, it's you stuck with it and here you are. And I don't know, there's just so much power in that. But okay, I want to wrap things up here. So much good things that have been shared. Thank you for all of that. Where can people find you?
I suppose you can find me on Instagram. Like, I'm not opposed, but you're probably gonna find it boring. So, no, so my podcast is She Slays the Day podcast. I will say the podcast is much more broad ranging. Like, we just did a topic on, like, parasites and
Yeah.
stuff. Yes, some of the episodes are very systems and procedures, but I would say like 50% of the episodes are really not chiropractic specific. It's much more entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
health stuff, like, just fun stuff like that. But so it's She Slays the Day podcast, and then Instagram, where you can laugh along to chiropractic stuff, is at She Slays.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all of your thoughts and all of your wealth of knowledge. And I appreciate you so much for sharing everything with us on the podcast.
Thanks, Maya.